All right, recording is going now. Where is it? Where does it save to? Who knows? We'll find out later. No idea.
It doesn't warn. That's interesting.
It says it like
there.
for me. It says it in the corner. I don't know. I'm on the client.
Yeah, it's a very discreet. It's like in Media's blinders or something. Almost missed it.
Yeah, let me share my screen while we are waiting a couple more minutes till everybody joins. So before COVID, we used to have this in the office, and this meeting is an annual meeting, and it's called Minikube Crazy Idea. And this meeting, we talk about what is the future of Minikube for 2-3 years from now. What do you like to see if you were in the future? And this one is not necessarily something realistic, but something that could be anything in your imagination that you could possibly think about it. So any idea is welcome, including unrealistic ones. Once we have a couple more people, we will get started. So with recording our ideas and say why we need them.
We just lost your screen share, Nadia.
Yeah, I stopped it so I can message. Is it daylight saving going on for everybody? In America, we have not started daylight saving yet. I think it's the end of the month. How about you guys?
Yeah, we changed this weekend.
This weekend, okay.
Yeah, so now we're back to normal time again. So this meeting starts an hour earlier for me.
Oh, I didn't think about it. Like this would affect the global users, like the timing of the meeting.
Certainly, you're
Because yeah. Okay. I would say let's get started. Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about Minikube, and I would say let's go around the table and everybody just share what was the first time they worked with Minikube, what was their first experience. I'll start. First time that I played with Minikube was as a user. It was 2016, and I was developing this tool called KateGuard, which was a security tool for Kubernetes. And I needed a Kubernetes cluster to try it on. So I used Minikube to test that. At that time, it was only VirtualBox driver. I didn't have any other driver.
a long time ago.
So that was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I nominate Priya. She just joined. Priya, it was the first time you touched Minikube.
The first time I touched minikube was 3 years ago, but I basically just I think I implemented the storage provisioner and then I never touched minikube again for 2 years after that. So I've only really been working on it for this year, I would say, seriously.
Wow, so your first experience with Minikube was as a contributor.
Yeah.
Cool. How about you, Ilya?
So the first time I touched Minikube was, I think, 3 years ago, 2017. So I just started to learn Kubernetes. I used Minikube just to complete Google tutorials, like how to do basic things, how to do deployments. So yeah, that's my first time.
Did you say 3 years ago?
I think so, 3 or 4.
Okay. How about you, Predrag?
So my first contact with minikube was in 2020, maybe, well, probably less than 2 months ago.
Oh, okay. And do you remember what driver you were trying it on?
Well, by chance, it happened to be default driver because I didn't know that I can set the driver, so it would be Docker. And then I also played with KVM too.
And did you try it with, just for developing an application or for trying Kubernetes? What was the reason you tried it?
Actually, I didn't want to bother to bring up the whole Kubernetes thing on my machine, so therefore I wanted to play with something that would be as close to that as possible. For some private, personal, I wouldn't say even project, it is more something that I'm playing with, so I went for minikube to try.
Cool. Sharif, it's your turn. What was the first time you touched minikube?
So I was on the team that created minikube, so I started right at the beginning in 2016. So I was like,
Do you mind giving us like a overview of who was, because you know the person who created minikube from the scratch. Tell us who was that person. What was it like?
Oh, it was my manager at the time, D Lawrence on the. So he was the guy who actually like came up with minikube and like pitched it to the team internally at Google. He wanted to call it microcube, but his manager thought that was too ambitious, so we changed it to minikube. That's a real story, by the way.
Okay, it was meant to be called microcube.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and now Ubuntu stole it.
Yeah, that's true. They have microcates.
Cool.
Yeah. So originally, it was just like it was originally intended in the exact way that most people use it, which is, hey, I want a quick Kubernetes cluster on my machine just to mess around and test it out. And it wasn't like, it's sort of taken on more and more stuff as time has gone on, because it was very much like the first Kubernetes, like local Kubernetes option. And so as more people used it, more use cases came up and we made it like more and more flexible. So that's kind of how we're in the situation we're in now. I didn't originally work on minikube. I was working on other things on the team, but I had definitely like helped out testing and stuff. And
now 4 years later, we are at more than $4 million, 3-4 million downloads on GitHub, and this does not include the minikube GCS downloads. It's only the GitHub downloads. And we have, how many stars do we have on GitHub? Where do we see it?
It's up the top. It's like almost, it's 19,500. It's right at the top.
Yeah, 19,500 stars. And I think we have about 100K active users in outside China, because we don't have Chinese data. And we have more than 560 contributors in 4 years that happened. And in the last year, the new things in minikube is the Docker driver. It was a big feature that changed minikube from a VM based to a container based, and significant performance boost in both CPU and this minikube startup. And I remember when last time we had this meeting, the biggest idea was like, we should make minikube start faster. And it was one of the biggest ideas that we have. Now we want to get started with our crazy ideas. So I would like to actually, each of us take 5 minutes and write down our ideas, either in the doc or in a piece of paper. And then later, after 5 minutes, I will go around the table and ask everybody to say their idea. And then after the initial round, it will be free talk, and we add more ideas based on the previous ideas that people gave us. So let's get started. I'll set a timer for 5 minutes. So the question is, what do you like to see minikube to do in 2 or 3 years? what is the best thing that you can come up with in your imagination that minikube should do? All right, 1 more minute. All right. Let me see how many items I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 5. Let's see what's the best way to do this. Who likes to nominate to go first to say their ideas?
I could go first.
Okay.
I only have two. But the first one was that it would be nice if like we could demonize minikube, kind of like how Docker for Desktop does it, just so that like people kind of always have a cluster running that they can interact with. And I think it would kind of go hand in hand with the autopause idea, where we could like intelligently like pause and unpause the cluster as people were using it, and that way like people wouldn't have to ever run minikube start or minikube stop. It would just kind of like be there when people needed it. And
Okay.
my other idea was like a minikube perf command, like for performance, where if someone is like running their application in cluster, we could collect like performance metrics on the running application and kind of like display them to the user in like a maybe like a dashboard, or like open up something in their browser, and then people could kind of like learn about like what's going on in their application while it runs in minikube.
Okay. Let's see if this wording that I'm writing is what reflects what you meant. Insight to the application's performance, user's application. User's application performance on minikube. Or dashboards.
Yeah,
Dashboard.
probably a dashboard would be the easiest way to visualize it.
Okay. So the first one was, the idea was like we should have an always running minikube cluster that user doesn't have to pause or stop it. We should just do it for them all the time. I mean, automatically.
Yeah, basically, like user would never have to run minikube start or minikube stop. Like they'd never have to interact with the command line at all, essentially.
Yeah, so that would include like some sort of UI like Docker Desktop has.
Yeah, it's definitely like some sort of menu item, but like in theory, like if like we could even detect like if there was errors in the cluster and like restart it ourselves, like or do a delete and start if we see that like something's wrong. And yeah, basically the idea is like to minimize command line usage as much as possible.
Oh, okay. That could actually be another one. So minimize user command line interaction.
Yeah.
So
like
we should
everything
do things for
that
them.
could be automated by us could be done. It would be really nice. And then maybe like once in a while, like people would have to click like a restart button, or if they wanted to like change the Kubernetes version, like you could like open up a little menu and then like set it and then restart your cluster. But like I think it'd be nice if we never needed to use command line.
Yeah, I think you can actually make it stronger, which is like eliminate any need for command line interaction for base like common use cases. So cover up 80% of functionality with a UI, and then power users can still be power users, just like anything else.
Okay, I like that. Thank you very much.
We have it on the roadmap.
I think
Go
I
ahead
will
and
be
cover.
able to. Sorry.
Go ahead, Predrag.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I can build on what Priya just said. I have nothing crazy, but what crossed my mind was actually to having something that Vagrant was people, in terms of having like default tool that would be the first thing and default thing you would use when you start developing, forming a team or starting a project. So like something that would actually people use on a regular basis. That means that it should be as simple as possible, which is kind of going with the third point that Priya said. So simplifying things, improving performance and speed and usability. Along with that probably goes a UI that would help people that are not versed with command line or don't like it for some reason. But definitely a vision, long-time vision for me would be something that is like default tool that you would use. Maybe in combination with things like scaffold or anything else that could actually just plug and work. So I don't have to think, well, I am a developer, like standard one that just, I would start it once and that's all. Just continue working.
So one of them that I could put in standard was like provide default tools that most common users install after installing minikube to develop an application.
Yes. So the idea with scaffold was like continuous integration and continuous CI/CD kind of thing, like a bundle development environment.
Okay, so the bundle minikube, I think bundle minikube with a CI tool that helps user to develop an application.
Yes.
So you like minikube to be bundled with another tool that finishes the job.
It doesn't have to be as a coupled bundle. It could be like pluggable with, if I install this, it will just play with minikube nicely. And regarding the previous point, just maybe to clarify, not just default tools with minikube, but minikube to be like a default tool, go-to tool for a developer to build a project.
Okay, so you want minikubes to be so open and so pluggable that all other tools feel comfortable to say this is a default tool that I need.
Yeah.
Okay. Make minikube the default tool for all developers by making it pluggable. That's actually a good suggestion. We had suggestion from the creators of Docker Desktop, something we have talked to in the past, and they suggested, what if we Docker Desktop uses minikube for Kubernetes instead of their own Kubernetes version? So when anybody installs Docker, just minikube would be there, because minikube does a very good job in installing Kubernetes, and with the latest version and with different runtimes, and Docker does a good job being very, very popular and being installable everywhere. Cool. So make minikube the default tool for all developers by making it pluggable, and making it the de facto default for all developers. Cool. I like that. I don't know what group would I put in that. I would say this is still usability, yeah. All right. Any other thing? All right.
So I have a
let's-
couple of ideas.
Sure. Go ahead. Ilya.
First of all, yeah, about performance. It would be great to have something like minikube top commands actually to see resource utilization, not only from user application, but also from system services.
Your voice
Because,
is
like,
cutting
from my
out a little bit.
experience,
I don't know if it's only for
sorry.
me or for everybody else.
For me too, yeah.
Does everybody else hear
I'm
Ilya
sorry,
well?
guys.
No.
Yeah, it's a little crackly.
Very
Okay.
hard, yeah.
Mm,
I like the idea of
is
minikube.
it better now? Can you guys hear me?
No.
Try
Let me try actually to reconnect to Zoom.
yeah, try leaving and coming back. I like his idea though. So
I didn't hear it. Can you repeat it for
the idea was
everybody?
minikube top, basically.
Oh. Oh.
I'll let
okay.
him explain. I think that's a good idea. Just like have a good idea of what kind of resource consumption.
So basically like minikube logs, but it would aggregate like kubectl, node top and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We'd basically we'd parse these logs and present it in a way that doesn't make your eyes bleed, because that's what we're doing now.
Nice. I like that.
We
Let's
should,
wait for
we
Ilya
should tell
so we
him
can-
that's a good. I didn't come up with the idea. I just liked the idea.
Hey guys, is it any better now? Can you hear me?
Not really, but that's okay.
It's the same,
yeah.
but try
Sorry
again.
about that.
It's
Say
the
it slowly
desktop
so
app.
we
The
don't miss the
desktop app
word.
is terrible.
Mm,
Just keep going. It's fine.
But Sharif actually was able to understand.
Yeah,
but
explain in your own words. I did my best to explain what I understood, but go for it. Just explain what you were saying.
So the idea, yeah, was like to have a simple dashboard in console just to see where actually what consumes memory and CPU inside minikube. So it could be like all user services or things like, I don't know, kubelet. Basically have some idea where like all the memory goes. Because from my experience, it could be a problem if like you're trying to deploy some real life application with 10 services, for example, on a database. So like we're usually consume all the memory pretty quickly. So
okay,
it would be great to provide some diagnostics.
That fits very well in monitoring group. I would say that's a great idea. That would be giving us very good visibility. I think that'd be a really cool thing to do. Actually, I like that idea. It's like we have a let's say minikube whatever command and tells us what is using what inside minikube. It's like your pod is using this much, but yeah, that's really cool. What else? Do you have other ones or?
Yeah, I have more. So another idea is to be able to inject some errors inside minikube. So for example, now we support multiple nodes. And as a developer, I would be interested to see what happens if my service, if, for example, a node goes down completely, like emulates some hardware failure, or what is like if network is broken in some way. So I'm thinking about things like chaos engineering, basically, to be able to inject some like issues and see what happens with the service.
This is like testing, basically. This is like dirt internally, but like.
Well, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's very similar to what Google does every year. Yeah, Sharif mentioned dirt. Google has this thing. Sharif, give us a summary of Google dirt.
Basically, it's a practice. It's a practice for the SREs where we actually take down parts of production to test out like what would happen if like big parts of production went down and how we recover. That's basically the short version of the story.
Okay, so this is a good idea. So emulate hardware failure as a feature. So for testing Kubernetes failures.
Or application failures, like or anything where a node becomes unresponsive. Or
for testing production failures.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that. What category should we put in there? You guys see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What category should we? I would say this is a feature. in the category of
Yeah, I don't know what would you, I guess it's like,
testing,
I guess testing.
or production testing, environment testing. That's really cool. That's a really cool idea. Thank you, Ilya, for that. We have other more?
Yeah, I have more. So nowadays about like hybrid architecture, so like ARM architecture becoming more and more popular. So it would be actually great to be able to test, for example, ARM application or x86 environment. Not actually sure if you really need it, but yeah. So I think about some emulation inside minikube to run like mixed architecture environment.
So you mean emulation of running, for example, ARM on AMD?
Yeah, exactly.
So for say the user's laptop is AMD, but they want to try ARM. They want to see how the application would run on ARM.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Emulate a non-AMD ARC on an AMD machine. Cool. That would be really interesting how to implement that, but I like that. No idea is crazy. Every idea is good here.
No, this one is actually not so crazy. We are doing this. It has some interesting aspects. I mean, the simplest thing would be to just emulate the whole hardware, but that's not the interesting stuff. So if you look at the Docker launched a couple of years ago, they bundled this feature to be able to run ARM binaries on your normal Docker. We could have something similar. You could have like a Kubernetes control plane running on your native architecture, and then you can have individual pods running on emulated architecture. So you could have hybrids and stuff. There's lots of interesting things to do here.
Nice.
We are using ARM as a test bed, so there's plenty of opportunities to just dive in with this. I like this feature.
Nice. Thank you, Ilya. Is there anything else you have?
So yeah, the last one actually is to be able to synchronize different Kubernetes environments. So for example, say if I have a production cluster and I want to run exactly the same configuration in my minikube, so it's not only like my user deployments, it's also like some system things like service accounts, ingress controllers, things like that. So it would be great to have a way to basically copy the entire Kubernetes environment from one Kubernetes cluster and deploy exactly the same set of services in minikube. So actually, I'm not sure if Kubernetes already does that. So maybe there's a way. I just don't know how to do it.
Okay.
But yeah, would be nice because like usually minikube environment is, from my experience, the minikube environment is different from like real production Kubernetes, because in production we run much more ways like ingress controllers, for example, we usually don't run it on minikube.
So when you say that, do you mean in the Kubernetes settings or the application that was deployed on a cluster? Let's say I have a cluster with some application on it, and you want to have the same application on minikube, or you want the Kubernetes specific settings of that cluster to be transformed to minikube?
It's about like deployed resources, so not only my user resources, but also about system stuff. So, so yeah, to like make a snapshot of everything that is running inside Kubernetes, inside one Kubernetes, and copy it to minikube, and maybe vice versa, to copy everything from my minikube environment to some production cluster.
Nice, I like that. So I see if this is a good summarization of what you meant. Ability to clone or snapshot a production cluster into a minikube cluster.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
This is really cool. That's actually never familiar. That's really cool. Thank you, Ilya. I want to nominate Anders to go next.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I can start with. I started with minikube. I guess it was 4 years ago, and then I was running the non-driver on Docker machine that I provisioned because we were not allowed to run Docker in production because of the security issues, and we had Kubernetes clusters on the backlog for enterprise IT for like 6 months. So they were working on it. It would come in a year, but we were a bit fed up with testing. So we deployed our own Docker and installed local kube on it. So local kube with a non-driver, that was nice.
So you first started minikube as a user?
Yes, or as you could say as like an admin or a support for users. We were using it as educational environment before. So we actually started by installing Kubernetes using a GUI. You would start VirtualBox, and then you would insert a CentOS CD, and then you would install the OS, and then you would follow the README how to install the Docker, and then you would, So we started with a GUI, and then minikube was the way to automate it using the command line. So it seems like now we're going back to the GUI again, but hopefully a bit more automated this time. I have some non-crazy ideas, like we should replace Docker Desktop with a minikube VM and so on. But I will skip just to the crazy ideas. I think we can go back to the boring ones.
So the person was replace Docker Desktop VM with a minikube VM?
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
So if the minikube VM is good enough, there's no reason to have a Docker Desktop VM at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have the Docker daemon, we have the integration, we have Kubernetes. I mean, on the feature parity level, there is no reason why we couldn't have everything.
So you mean for the Docker driver to use an existing minikube VM instead of using the Docker's desktop?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna word it this way: Docker driver to use minikube VM instead of Docker desktop's Docker.
Yeah,
it's actually a good idea, because actually I've seen our VM uses much less overhead compared to Docker desktop. I would see value in that too.
But didn't you just say that the Docker driver was using much less resources than the previous?
No, it starts faster. It starts faster, right, for sure, because the VM is already running.
Exactly, because that has a lot to do with if you mention with a cold VM or a warm VM.
Yeah. So I think once we have always running minikube VM, that would be a good investment for us to actually use our own VM instead of Docker Desktop's VM.
Yeah, because if we had our own VM, you could start just the VM, and then you could spin up the cluster on the VM. I mean, like afterwards, so you would have like an empty VM running, and then spin up the cluster when you're ready for it. Because the empty VM doesn't hog so many resources. At least not when we benchmarked it.
That's a good idea. I like that.
Let's see, there were some details on that. And then there was like simple multi-node as an addition to that. So if you can spin up one, you can spin up two, right? I mean,
simple multi-node. What do you mean by that? So I mean, currently we have a command to add a node. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, exactly. So just it should be as simple to spin up two of these as because when you run Docker Desktop, it's not so easy to spin up two of them. To have two Docker Desktop VMs is a pain in the. I mean, I'm not sure if it's even possible. But you can easily do it with minikube or Docker Machine or something. So we should preserve that feature. Even though we have a single node that works nice out of the box, it's just as easy to spin up a second one and connect it to the first one. So you have like multi-node around the corner when you want it. And that's been the option for the minikube development.
But I believe we have this option now, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Just having a sane default, like it needs to be more usable than it is now, for sure.
Yeah, and we also have some pending issues, like how the registry should work and how the storage should work and stuff like that. So
there's a bunch of.
There's some. I mean, there's a lot of details under the hood, but for the user, it should be as easy as Lego bricks. You would just add one and then another one and another one.
Yeah, so I have this like list of nice to have multi-node features, and they'd all need to be finished to make this viable, basically.
Cool. All right, what is the next idea?
Okay, that was the boring ones. I will go with the crazy ones now then. Cloud hosting for Minikube. Similar
Okay.
to the current Katacoda offering, you would spin up learning cluster in some cloud provider.
So you mean, like say you would have some code snippet or HTML snippet that people will put in the browser and they'll have access to a Minikube interactive way, you mean?
Yeah, doesn't really. I was thinking more about the actual node provisioning, but when you say it, I think the web interface could be a nice add-on to it, but that was not my primary. It was just like, say you have a tablet or a small laptop or an old laptop, then you could allocate the resources in the cloud and then just do Minikube start and it would connect to this resource.
Gotcha. So run Minikube in the cloud for low resource machines. Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, the Katacoda does this right now for the users, but it's quite opaque how they do it, like how it's implemented. I mean, it's available. You can like try Kubernetes using Minikube in your browser today, but it's I mean, it's kind of out of our hands, even though it uses maybe some of our software in a weird non-driver configuration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that was the idea.
Cool.
And the second idea was the Minikube hardware appliance, Kubernetes in a box, possibly multiple boxes if affordable enough.
What do you mean?
So you would have a server which has which you plug into your network or to your laptop, and then you can just Minikube start and then just say on my like Kubernetes appliance, and it would either you would have several of them to create a cluster, or it could spin up VMs for you. So you could have like a remote host for your VMs.
Like
so instead
for storage, I guess.
Yeah. So instead of allocating a virtual machine, you would connect to a Linux server, and then you could either install Kubernetes directly on that machine, or
okay. So bootstrap Minikube with a given server credential.
Yeah.
Server credential. So all people have to do is just give us server SSH keys and IP, and we bootstrap Minikube into that.
Yes.
Right.
And you could even offer like an ISO or a standard OS that they would install on that box, and then you can bundle.
I like that. Next person, Sharif.
So I'm here only to the one that's been thrown around a lot. Actually, Thomas came up with this initially, but it has to do with like usability, which is like, let's see if we can spin up Minikube in like 5 seconds or 1 second, because that'll definitely help with usability and having it always be on, and having like a much lower imprint on the user's machine in general.
Currently, Minikube takes around 23 to 30 seconds to start. So this is a great, crazy idea for next year.
This was originally Thomas's idea, but basically a warmed cache Minikube should be able to start up in like 5 seconds or less.
Yeah. So you would like unpause it in 5 seconds.
It's basically I think underneath the hood it's going to be like a pause Minikube in a tarball, basically.
Cool. Yeah, other ideas?
I don't.
I mean, if you implement this sleep function well enough so that the Minikube VM has a minimum performance when not doing anything, then you could have it running in the background for the user, and then you would have that experience if you could wake it quick enough. Mm-hmm. You would have like It's like your TV when it takes a while to start it when it's cold, but then you put it in standby mode and then you can wait it in a decent amount of time.
It's like taking the idea of like pausing Kubernetes, but all the way to 11, basically. It's like this logical conclusion.
Definitely, like this is one of the most interesting things to implement. People have shown interest in this, and it'd be really cool.
I think you can also do it on the VM hypervisor provided today. You can like pause it for, if the VM is small enough, it will save quickly enough, so you can probably do it. I haven't benchmarked it, but you should be able to start and stop a VM in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
By just suspending it to disk.
Cool. Actually, my ideas were, some of them were actually mentioned here already. And I'm going to go over the ones that are not mentioned. One is the GUI for Minikube, which is going to be under usability. I would like to have a GUI for Minikube so people know what cluster is running, how many clusters they have, pause it or start it. Another one is I'd like to see same image for VM and containers. This will be like helping us with a lot of the code technical base and technical depth. And another one is open source process for releasing Minikube. Currently, as Googlers, we have some credentials that we log into some Jenkins, and only us, we can really push the Minikube ISO, even though you can build the code on Minikube. So I like the open source community to have power and rights to do that if they are maintainers. So I would like the open source process for Minikube releases. And another one that I like to have is multilingual website. We have a large user base in China. I've seen that people have forked Minikube, and they have forked documentations, and they tell people how to do things. It'd be cool if we had a central way with the help from the same users who maintain those forks, and have a central way of helping everybody. Another one is automatically upload troubleshooting logs. So whenever there's a problem with Minikube, there should be some logs command. For example, Minikube log -- upload issue. So when it will automatically create an issue in GitHub that attach all the possible logs to that issue. So, and also all the settings of their Minikube. So each time there's a troubleshooting on Minikube, you don't have to ask them, give me this, give me that, give me this. We just say, give me the output of this command. So probably be like a large text file or a tar file that wraps around all the log files. So maybe I'll say automatically produce troubleshooting logs on error or failure.
And open an issue on GitHub, right?
Yeah, an open issue on GitHub. So this could be implemented in a way that either the user can just get the file and give it to somebody, or if they allow us, we upload it on their behalf. These are the ideas that I. Another one is so community-based maintainer onboarding. Currently, Minikube maintainers have been with the project for a few years, and we have accumulated a lot of knowledge of how to build Minikube, process Minikube. Even though we have a contribution guide, I think those guides are not enough. We need like a more close meetings with the people who like to become Minikube maintainers, so they feel comfortable being in the charge of the whole project, because it's an open source project. It's not owned by Google, even though a lot of us are Googlers. So I like to have a community-based, transparent maybe maintainer coaching. I like to, for example, by next 2 years, you have 5 maintainers outside Google that are completely comfortable with building Minikube, pushing Minikube, and steering Minikube for the future. So you don't be dependent on Google for that. All right, so we have 6 minutes left. I'm gonna give everybody. Go ahead.
Excuse me, Media. I have just a quick question regarding the first one, maybe to add something. If we're looking to have always running cluster, would we say that we would also want to have auto healing and self-updating on live? Like it's like live patching for kernel. So those two things alongside the always on.
You know, that actually could be a very good idea, just to have a separate idea. Currently, we do support live updating Minikube with a caveat that we do not change the ISO or the base image. We just install the new settings and new binaries on that. If you want a new new Minikube, you basically need to delete Minikube and recreate it with a new ISO. So that would actually be a great idea to implement, that the live patching or live updating Minikube with a real update, like a real ISO.
Yeah, it's
And
one of my
sorry.
No, it's one of my pet projects to experiment a bit with that. At least with dual booting, so you could boot into a new ISO.
Yeah, that would be actually, I would be very happy with that. So given that the time that we have left, I'm gonna give everybody 5 votes, an honor-based system. Go ahead, and if you have, does everybody has access to the doc? If you don't, I will share it with you. Predrag, if you don't have access to this, I can give you your access as an editor.
Everyone, oh yeah, editor. Okay, everyone can edit. As long as you have a link, you can edit. It's totally
open.
So you just need.
If you can't, let me know. I'll add your Gmail here. So everybody, please vote 5, and the ones that you think is the most important to you. 5 votes, and the end will count the votes and pick the top 5 or top 10 or sort them.
Tiny URL, whatever.
What is? How do we want in terms of what is the symbol for a vote?
Oh, you just put number 1 in each column, in front of each column.
Number 1, okay.
Yeah.
So is it also 1 per idea, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if I guess if you're enthusiastic about an idea, you can use 2 vote on it, but you have maximum 5 votes.
Yeah, okay.
Word. There we go. We've added in groups for everything now.
Who has not voted all their 5 votes?
I have not.
I haven't.
Okay.
One more.
I think that was 5. Yeah, could be 4.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anybody
whatever.
else who has not voted completely?
I'm done.
Good.
Okay, everybody voted. Cool. So it appears that actually the top 2 of them, the minikube top to show users used resources, and dashboard for the user's application performance, which are actually similar in concept, have very high votes. I would consider that like one of the most. I would consider that area most voted. And then after that, always running cluster with auto pause. That's also the most voted. And then start minikube under 5 seconds. And then live ISO update with minikube. So I'm going to actually summarize this with the number of the votes. And by the way, in the attendees, please add your own name. So we have a record of your name here. Later after this, I will sort it, and the other ones that still got a lower vote but higher than 1 will be mentioned. And we will release it in the Slack channel.
Yeah, no one voted for my appliance, I guess. They won't be selling it. Cupcake.
Sometimes.
Well, I if they had more votes, you get more.
Yeah, I can show it to you. Maybe you will want to buy one.
Oh.
That's
Now that I see that, I would. If you had shown me that, I would probably vote it that way.
Sometimes ideas are too crazy until you see them in person.
Yeah. No. So the end bill under at like $750 or something, and you can get a quite decent computer for that. So, but at least you can have 4 of your Kubernetes nodes in a box, and it fits in the backpack, so it makes my life easier.
That sounds very cool. I mean, it looks very cool.
But currently, I'm working on getting the multi-master going. That's like the end game of multi-node.
Yeah.
It's super complicated.
Do other tools support multi-master like K3D and others?
Kind does for sure.
Yeah, MicroK's just announced it, and K3S also announced it, and so on. You have some issues with the database and whatnot. So.
Yeah, multi-master is kind of complicated.
Yeah.
Well, we are at the end of our meeting today, and we have finished the times. Thank you, everybody, for showing up to this event. I know a couple other people who wanted to come, but they couldn't join because of other problems they had and conflicts they had. But thank you very much for showing up. I hope that this be a vision for us for next couple of years. If anybody else wants to have a closing statement or add something to it, I'm all ears.
I think some feature might actually be closer than that. I mean, some of these features should be doable in like 1 year. From the looks.
Some of these can be done this year. Nah.
Yeah,
or like early next year maybe.
some of them were promised to be delivered last year.
True.
But that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. But seriously, we also should get the crazy ideas and the early implementations out for the users to test them and help us with it, because we're not really selling this as a normal product. It's like a partnership we have. So even though it might not be completely finished, we should probably still put it out there. Maybe someone else will finish it for us.
Yeah, I agree. I will look into publishing it in a presentable way on our website or the Slack. I'm open to ideas where would be the best place to advertise this. I think it definitely would inspire the community to help us get there.
Yeah, you should probably just put it at the end of the roadmap, like crazy future ideas.
That's a good idea. We can actually put the recording of this somewhere and with link to this page.
Maybe a summary or something, but I mean that would be a nice way, place to have it, like future.
Cool. Before I finish, Predrag, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to thank specifically you for inviting me. It was my pleasure to participate in this one.
It's absolutely my pleasure to have you here, and I look forward to see more of your contributions. With thank you everybody, and have a very good week, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks in the next office hours.
Thank you. Maybe if you want to, maybe a calendar invite would be good, just for these time zone differences and time shifting and everything else.
Yeah, we have a calendar invite that we could add people to.
Yeah, we should actually look into have a calendar invite for the community, not just for the Googlers. And I will look into that. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Go on, everybody.
Yes. Bye.